Good morning, everybody. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talks. Are you serious? Usually I'm joined by the Mad New Yorker. He had a last-minute appointment that he had to get to, and he will not be joining us this morning, which is going to cause a little havoc with our show, and I'll talk about it in just a second. I want to welcome everybody watching this morning on TGI Sports Talk on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, or even on the Northeast Streaming Sports Roku channel. If you are not subscribed to the Northeast Streaming Sports Roku channel, please do so. You can do so for free. Well, we're also on Northeast Streaming Sports Facebook and YouTube this morning, and Let's Talk Sports YouTube feed. Great content on all of those or any of those outlets. So please check that out. Quick shout out to RW Media and Ralph Williams. Does some great stuff over there, specifically the Sports Corner with Smokin' Jim Frazier, which he does every Tuesday night at 5 p.m. on 12:30 a.m. 97. See, I did it again. 99.3 FM WBVP radio. Good to have you with us today, guys. As I said, we're going to have a little bit of a hiccup this morning as I planned the show after not being on for 2 weeks on this show and all my shows, but we've caught up on the Sunday Stream of Consciousness. We caught up on college football, college basketball huddle. Wanted to catch up with the Mad New Yorker today with some of the things he and I had not had a chance to talk about, the Super Bowl, Kelse and Reid, and other stuff. But the Mad New Yorker is otherwise occupied this morning and has a conflict and could not make it. So we're going to wing it today. We want to take your comments, and we'll talk about the things that you guys are looking at. Hello, Dave Guyette up there in Amsterdam, New York. Alex Simpson across the pond, as it were. Good afternoon. Good morning. Good morning to Anthony. 28 days till opening day, Dave says. We'll be back with a Major League Baseball update at 3 o'clock this afternoon as well. We'll catch everybody up on what's going on in baseball. And good afternoon to JB. He says, good morning, Keith. Chat, one of the best shows out there. Thank you very much. Glad you're back. Good to be back. As I started to say, the Mad New Yorker was not able to join us this morning, so the things I wanted to catch up with him, we're going to have to bypass. But I've already talked about them on the Sunday Stream of Consciousness. I've talked about them on College Sports Huddle. So today I'm going to get into, we'll get into whatever you guys want to talk about for the next hour, 55 minutes, whatever it is. A couple of things I haven't talked at length about, but we did talk about a couple of things. Violence in the arenas needs to stop, okay? We can talk about that. We had an incident in college basketball, Texas and Texas Tech, bottle throwing, guys trying to get to the court. Guys, you don't get a free pass when you buy a ticket to a sporting event to do anything you want. You can boo, you can hiss, you can do whatever you want. That's one thing I might get into. Lebron sticking up for Bronny. Bronny's getting jeered, overrated, blah, blah, blah. Now, that is okay. You can boo people. I don't know why my lighting's so bad this morning. Am I missing a light somewhere? I don't think so. Yeah, whatever. You can, as I said, you can jeer people. You just can't get violent. Now, Bronny's got to stick up for himself and shut people up by playing better basketball. I understand he's had some health issues and he didn't get started until midseason, but LeBron's not helping out his son by sticking up for him and ripping into people. Okay. A couple other things. Mecole Hardman rips the Jets for, the culture, for the coaching staff, the front office. He ripped pretty much everybody, went scorched earth on the Jets. But he also admits he quit on the team before he got released and went back to Kansas City, won a Super Bowl. Was a big part of winning that Super Bowl. What's it say about Mecole, if I'm saying his name right, Hardman, that he quit on the Jets? And in the same vein, and I might talk about it later on the MLB update, Anthony Rendon from the Angels admits he doesn't really like baseball. They're only paying him tens of millions of dollars a year, $100 million over his career, to play a game he doesn't even like. Well, why don't you? Plus, he's hurt all the time. It makes you wonder how badly a guy like Anthony Rendon wants to get back on the field when he does get hurt, and how hard he wants to work to extend his career. Good God, man. We can talk about the Knicks this morning. We can talk about anything you guys want. So throw some topics at me. We'll talk about all of these things. And there's a couple of things that are irritating me. Fan violence, which seems to pop up every few years. And there's some ugly incidents in the past. I got to go back to doing my vlog so I can really let go, right? Player indifference, right? Mecole Hardman wants to rip the Jets, and he doesn't even, he admits he checked out. Good grief. We don't talk about the Super Bowl. No, let's talk Super Bowl, Alec. I want to talk Super Bowl a little bit. I'm just kidding. You and I have not had a chance to discuss Super Bowl, Alec. You've probably just come out from your 2 weeks of mourning, or now it's 3 weeks, I guess. I've lost total track of time. It seems like the Super Bowl was 2 months ago. Congrats to the Chiefs. I'm sorry, Alec. You know, your team played well. The Chiefs are better. They're better coached. And I like Shanahan. I defend Shanahan a lot. But they're better coached by Andy Reid. Reid did a great job of managing the clock. The Chiefs offense, everybody, and I've said this throughout the playoffs, nobody talks about the Chiefs defense. That defense was as good as the Ravens this year, by the way. And they showed it when they played them. The offense is not nearly as good, but Patrick Mahomes finds a way to make plays. It was a good game. I thought it was a really well-played game. You saw teams, you saw strategy on both sides, I think. And please, do not, and this isn't you, Alec. Don't come at me with the scripted bold crap about the NFL's scripted. They want the Chiefs to win. Just stop. Not you. What do you got, JB? You'd like to talk about you taking that jacket off? Listen, we'll talk more about it more as we go forward. Your Oriole team, JB, and I'll talk about it probably this afternoon on the MLB update, and we'll be talking about it weekly. The Orioles, they've got to be the favorites in the AL East in my mind. Toronto's always got all this talent, but they never seem to put it together. The Yankees are still flawed. If Anthony Rizzo comes back, I think that's going to be a key for the Yankees, but I'm still worried about the pitching staff. There's not enough starters. The bullpen's short. Don't like Holmes in the closer role. LeMahieu's another year older, and we're expecting him to play better, play more. We're counting on kids behind the plate. We're counting on Volpe to really take another step forward, which hopefully he will. And maybe a lot of these things happen. But your Orioles, JB, I think should be the favorites in the AL East. Just my thought. Bronnies sucks. How you average 5 points a game? Again, and I understand all that. Just remember, I don't think he'll get right. Listen, if you're getting drafted, he's a freshman. Don't forget, Anthony. He missed half the season because of his heart issue. I'm not getting on Bronny about how good or bad he's played. He's had a lot of ups and downs. He's had a couple of good games. It's probably going to take him another year. He's not getting drafted this year. He's a freshman. I don't think he'll get drafted as a sophomore unless things really change. And we don't really know how good Bronny is. LeBron wants to play with Bronny. I don't know that will happen, and I do think if it happens, it'll probably be ugly for the team that does it, because LeBron will be, he'll probably be way on the backside of his career, and his performance will be lacking. We don't know that Bronny's any good at all. He may be fine. I'm not going to judge the kid. My only judgment, and he's getting jeered as an overrated because he's gotten a lot of press, and he hasn't backed that up with play, and there's some reasons for that. I'm not an excuse maker. There's a difference between reasons and excuses why people may or may not play well. Now, But Bronny, when he goes on the road and gets jeered, he's got to be man enough to take that, number one, without his daddy getting in the press and bashing people. And you shut people up like that by producing on the court. And again, I'll give Bronny the benefit of the doubt this year because of the situation that he's been in. So, I'm on both sides of this issue right now. I'm not going to beat up Bronny because of, what's happened for him in the last year plus. But I'm going to bash his dad for, listen, I get it. You're a parent. You want to protect your kid. But LeBron, and I see Rick Sherlock's name, and I know that he's no LeBron lover. And you can think whatever you want about LeBron. LeBron's one of the best basketball players ever to step on a court. That much is indisputable. But he's also become full of himself with all this political nonsense and the China stuff. And during Bronny's first game, he walks in during the middle of the national anthem. Everybody else is standing for the national anthem. LeBron and his tribe are walking in. Stop. Should have waited for the thing. That's a bad visual. And now he's out there, sticking up for his son, which is fine, but let him fight his own battles. Good morning, the Mad New Yorker. I know that you probably hit the wrong key there, Rick. Excuse me. I end up having a last minute thing he had to get to and could not make the show today. And I'd kind of geared the show around all the things he and I had not talked about yet. A lot of things that I have covered on some other shows. So we're kind of just piecemealing it together. I talked a little about Alec with the Super Bowl, but Alec for some reason doesn't want to talk about the Super Bowl. We were talking about Bronny here, and Anthony was talking about how Bronny sucks. And again, I don't really know that Bronny sucks just yet. The odds of him being as good as his father, who's one of the top, no matter how you look at it, he's one of the top 5 players ever to play the game. You can think what you want. And I'm not a big fan these days. I was a big fan of LeBron in his younger days, and I did a lot of defending of LeBron because I thought he got it. But he's proven in recent years he does not. But Bronny's looking, he'll take some heat, and he's got to be able to take it. He's got to get thicker skin. And Daddy, don't keep backing him up because you're only going to make it harder on the kid and harder on yourself. So anyway, we're kind of bouncing around here, Rick. I had talked about a couple. We can talk about Mecole Hardman ripping the Jets. He goes and wins the Super Bowl and admits he would quit on the Jets. It's amazing. Anthony Rendon, who says he doesn't like baseball. Good grief. We can talk Super Bowl. We can talk fan violence, which needs to stop. Guys, you don't have a right to do whatever you want. But pretty much I'll play off your comments. It'll be a little bit like our Sunday show a little bit here for the next 45 minutes or so. Got a good crowd this morning. Want to welcome everybody in. I've been gone from this show for 2+ weeks. This will be the last show that we're catching up on. I know the audiences overlap too. So, and some people don't see the Sunday show or vice versa. And so maybe it's not all rehashed stuff, but Alec, the 49er fan, says 49ers were outplayed at the end. I wouldn't be worried. If we don't lose Greenlaw, we win in normal time. You don't know that for a fact, by the way. I understand that he's a big loss, right? But I don't necessarily think we know how that game would have turned out. I doubt it would have turned out any differently, quite frankly. The Chiefs know how to win. Then again, I know you're a 49er fan, so I expect you to stick up for your team. You should, and no reason you should be worried. The team is still loaded going into next year. Problem is, until the Chiefs get beat, the Chiefs are the champs. Champs for a reason. They find ways to win games. Right? Chiefs were not at full strength for that game. 49ers found a way to stop. Where's Jim Barringer? We should have had Jim Barringer in today. Talk a little hockey. but it was last minute. I lost to the Mad New Yorker. So anyway, 49ers, listen, they acquitted themselves well. It was a really good football game, I thought. I know people were probably bored for a half and three quarters because it was defensive and it was a defensive struggle a lot of the game. You saw a lot of chess being played, I think, between the two coaching staffs. And at the end, Andy Reid outcoached the 49ers. End of story for me. Can he flop like his daddy? I don't know. Rick, talking about Bronny, I'm sure. Can he flop like LeBron? Listen, again, we have a lot of fun with the names with LeBron, and listen, I get it, but I will not lose track of the fact that LeBron is one of the top 5 players of all time. Whether he's top 1 or 2 is debatable, but he's certainly in the top 5. If the Texans get Barkley, are they Super Bowl favorite? Well, man, Anthony, that's a good question. I think the Giants will probably franchise, if they have not already, franchise Barkley again, and they'll probably find a way to extend him now. Remember, they got $30 more million to play with. Everybody's got $30 more million to play with. The Giants' dilemma with Barkley after the big contract given to Daniel Jones is alleviated a bit by the extension of the salary cap to $255 million. It's $30 million higher than it was. And a lot of teams these teams should be using it to get themselves deeper on the offensive line and correct weaknesses and whatnot, but we'll probably overpay more quarterbacks and overpay more wide receivers. But I do think this helps the Giants both keep Barkley and get stronger in some areas of weakness as well. If the Texans were to get Barkley, which I do not think is going to happen, I don't know. I might make him a Super Bowl favorite. Here's the thing to remember, though. You got to be careful with the Texans this coming year. A lot of teams do what the Texans did last year. I saw it with the Patriots in Bill Parcells' second year. They went from, I want to say, 3-13, maybe it's 2-14, to 11-5 and a playoff berth. And then they fell backwards the following year. So they take a step forward, then they take a step back. And they had a young quarterback. It was a very similar situation. Drew was a second-year quarterback that year that they went to the playoffs, I believe, for the first time under Parcells. And again, that third year, there was a step back. CJ's a rookie, but it's a similar dynamic. And I've seen it with other teams. They get better, and then they take a step back because, number one, the schedule's harder. People are more prepared for them. And that doesn't mean any of that will happen with the Texans, but you just have to be careful how you prognosticate the Texans going forward. None of that may happen. It's not every good team. Some of them keep going up the ladder, but some go up and then they drop a rung or two, and then they get back on board. I did not see Byron's interview with Alfred Anderson. Was that on the his and Jim's show on Nessa? Rick, I'll make sure I check it out. Byron does some great stuff. There's some great shows, of course, on Northeast Streaming Sports, as you know, outside of mine. And today there's a great Jim Beringer. New York, New Jersey hockey updates. Rangers first team to 40 wins in the NHL. Also looking to add a center and a winger. We do have the trade deadline coming up here. Right, we do have the trade deadline coming up. Names like Frank Vetrano, Adam Hendrick. GM could be in trouble this summer if they don't make the playoffs. Who are we talking about here? How did I get lost here? If they want to add a scoring winger, I'm having trouble reading today. I took NyQuil last night, man, and I feel like I had a little sore throat. Nothing to get excited about. He's not going to be sick again. Linked him to the Rangers. He also linked to Vegas, too. He's also in Vegas. Do Devils need goaltending? LOL. Who's the GM? I'm confused about the GM that's in trouble there, Jim. Greenlaw's a coverage linebacker. Fred Warner is not. He couldn't keep up with Travis Kelsey. I get it. But you know what, Anthony? Injuries happen, and you adjust. And if you can't adjust, you lose. That's all there is to it. I'm not, and by the way, they did shut Travis Kelsey down in the first half. I'll give you that. But I'm not willing to sit here and say if Greenlaw hadn't gotten hurt, then they wouldn't have found a way to get Kelsey the ball in the second half as they did. I'm not telling you it didn't have any impact. You can't use injuries as an excuse for losing. You didn't lose your starting quarterback. You didn't, again, he's a very important part of the team. I get that. But the game was fairly even with Greenlaw in. I have no reason to doubt that the Chiefs and Andy Reid would have found a way to win the game. And by the way, if I want to get on Shanahan, I haven't done this yet, but I'll bash him. You don't take the ball in overtime. You kick the ball so you know what you need to do. I mean, that's simple. I mean, if I'm going to rip Shanahan, I'll rip him for that more than anything. And I know if Greenlaw's in, they would have won the game in regulation because we all have a crystal ball. I don't. I look at it logically and say, you know what? The Chiefs are the champs. The Chiefs found a way to win. I have no way to know. I'm not going to tell you they would have won the game or lost the game if Greenlaw stayed in. Because it's not a direct line. Everybody thinks, if this play hadn't happened this way, then, we lost, whatever. Again, what was it, a 3-point? Or I don't know, what was the final? I'm trying to think of the final now. 6-point game. You say, well, if we scored this touchdown or if we kicked this field goal and we've done this, we've done that, we do it all through the playoffs and all through the regular season. But the thing is, what you forget about is nothing happens exactly the way it would have if this had happened a different way. The game, the timeline doesn't go straight like it did. I'm having trouble putting what I want to say together. But we always say a block kick or whatever, right? Turning point of the game. And if we had made that kick or we'd scored that touchdown at the 1-inch line, we would have won the game. Well, you don't know how the game would have played out from that point because it would have been totally different. There's no way to predict what would have happened or would not have happened unless it's the last play of the game. Jim wants to come on for 20 minutes. We can do that. Let me get through these comments, Jim, and I'll put a link in the comments for you. Kelsey had 1 yard before Greenlaw went out. I get it. I get it. But I can't sit here and say to you, you can say to me, obviously, that the 49ers, without a doubt, would have won a game in regulation if Greenlaw doesn't get hurt. It's not even... Good morning, Bob Engle. My dad is here, and Jeanette. Good to have you with us. My dad's birthday while I was away. Happy birthday. I'll give you a little late happy birthday on the air. Lou Lamarillo. We'll bring in. How about we get Jim in? What do you think? Email, please? If I can. Let me try here, Jim. I was having some email trouble before. I think I straightened it out. I'm going to send Jim an email quickly. Bear with me, guys, while I do this. I know it's exciting to see me do stuff like this on the air, but it is what it is. We'll get Jim in here for a little bit. Talk whatever you guys want to talk about. You want to talk some hockey? You want to talk Super Bowl? Jim can do it all. All right, Jim, I just sent it, so we'll wait for Jim to get in. I'll continue to take some comments. And again, I'm not saying, when I getting back to Greenlaw, I want to be clear. I'm not saying he's not a great player, and they very well may have won. I don't know that, and you don't know that, Alec. No way to know what would have happened. You don't think, and I know he's a great cover linebacker. I understand that. But you don't think that the Chiefs and Andy Reid would have found another way? Kelsey went nuts in the second half. I agree. It had a big effect. but find a way to, you didn't score enough points to win either. Shanahan did his usual, outthought himself in overtime and taking the ball. Sometimes that was definitely overthinking, Alec. In fact, I don't even know what he's thinking. Because if you take the ball, if you don't take the ball, everybody kicks, so you know what you have to do, right? And people didn't even know the rule at the end of the first overtime. Well, I guess at the end of overtime, we didn't get to the second one. The game would have continued, by the way, because everybody gets one full possession. Everybody thinks, oh, the Chiefs are not calling timeout. Why weren't they calling timeout? They didn't need to. They get to have a full possession. The clock really meant nothing at that point. So, anyway, it is what it is. Jim can talk wrestling as well. They had midgets locally yesterday. It's little people. I think midgets is politically incorrect. Oh my God. We'll talk about some stuff. We'll talk about your comments. We'll get some hockey news from Jim when he comes in. And I did send it, Jim. I was just saying it's a big. No, you're absolutely right. Well, that's a really good point. And also the whole Kelse and Reid thing, by the way blown out of proportion. Those things happen on the sideline in the heat of the moment. People talk about he put his hands on. He put his hand, and he was caught off guard and stumbled a little bit. He didn't hit or assault his coach. Stop. I had another guy tell me, well, if you did that to your boss, we're talking about sports and the real world. You can't compare the two things. People get too caught up in stuff that doesn't matter. And if Kelse wasn't in the news the way he was with the whole, I don't even want to get into that part, it probably would have been a non-story. And you see how fast it went away, don't you? Because it's nothing. Nothing. He did, by the way, Greenlaw was in Kelce's head. That's obvious. And part of his frustration, I'm sure, was the fact that they couldn't get him the football. How would you handle the Chiefs' problem with Chris Jones, Snead? Well, Snead's been tagged. Who are you paying and how much and who are you tagging? Right now, they've already tagged Snead, I think, as of Wednesday. Did I send that to Jim Beringer, by the way? I think I did. I'm having doubts. Yeah. Chris Jones, I think, is a huge part of this team. Obviously, I don't think it's obvious that he's a huge part of this defense. Both of those guys. So right now, Snead's been tagged, and Chris Jones is probably somebody they've got to pay to come back. Now, I don't know what the Chiefs' cap situation is, but to me, they're the two linchpins of that defense, and they will not be the same without them. So it's important, I think, that they get them back for sure. And again, every team's going to run into these problems, but it's funny. I don't understand the whole cap thing. And why does the NFL keep just raising it? Why do we keep raising it? This make a lot of sense to me. You guys can tell me, would you love to know if Jim is high on the Bruins? Well, you'll find out in a second. We'll have Jim in here as soon as he gets that email and gets the link and gets in here. And Jim, if you have any problem, let me know. So we'll talk some hockey. We haven't had a lot of chance to do that recently. And in fact, I'll bring up some hockey on my own way here. Listen, the Bruins, just to talk about hockey for a bit, right? We know the Rangers have, I think, either tied or have the best record in hockey. The Bruins have fallen behind, well behind too. Well, not well. In points they're there, and wins they've fallen behind the Panthers. But the Bruins had gotten off to a hot start. It looked like they were just going to repeat last year's regular season, but they've stumbled a bit here recently. And we'll see what we'll see what Jim thinks about that if he comes in. The Rangers are playing great hockey, as Jim talked about some of the guys that they'll be interested in bringing in. I want to see how our Canadian folks are doing because, again, it's been probably 35 years or close to it since a Canadian team won the NHL Stanley Cup, which is amazing to me. Vancouver continues to pace the Western Conference, so they're still in play. Edmonton has slowed down a little bit since that great winning streak they had. They're only 5-4-1 in their last 10. Who else was in play there? Winnipeg is still playing pretty good hockey with 79 points up till now. I don't know if Jim didn't get our link or not. Jim, I read fighting is way down in the AHL. I often wonder if hockey wants this. I think hockey wants the fighting. I'd love to get Jim's take on this. Hopefully he'll be in here shortly. I did send him the link. Thought we'd have Jim bailing us out here this afternoon, but we'll talk whatever we need. We can talk a little hockey and warm up until Jim gets here, hopefully. Again, the fighting is down. Whether the NHL wants it to go away, I doubt that. I mean, it's part of the game. It's what a lot of fans tune in for or go to the arena for. So we'll bring in Jim. Jim's here now, actually. So let's welcome in Mr. Jim Beringer. Good morning, Jim.
What's up, guys? What's going on, world? How's TGI Sports Talk today?
Well, we had a last-minute cancellation. The Mad New Yorker had something come up, so everything I was going to talk about kind of went up in flames because I'd already talked about it elsewhere. But the
versatile player, the team player, always can step up.
He can. I was glad you were tuning in this morning because I wouldn't send you a message because I thought it was kind of last minute, but I'm glad you were here. In fact, while you were getting in here, we had some questions come up, so we'll
dive right in. Trade deadline is a week from today.
Let's start with this is a good question from Rick about the fighting is down or appears to be down anyway in the NHL. Is it something the NHL wants, or is it what's your take on that? To me, fighting is part of the game and it'll never go away. And I would think the NHL wants a certain amount of it.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's definitely down. The game's evolved. It's not the 70s. It's not the 80s. It's not prior to lockout. Look, definitely fighting is down, but I mean, there's a purpose to fighting. I mean, they want the stupid fighting out, like the stuff at the end of the game where the brawls happen and everything. But there's a part of the game that you need fighting, and like look, it can change a game. It can change momentum, right? If a team's down like 2-3-0 early, the guys are going to come out. They're going to drop the mitts a little bit. It could change momentum. And we saw that in the Stadium Series a little bit with the Rangers and the Islanders in that afternoon tail at MetLife, which was great. Rempe comes out. He has that fight with Matt Martin. The Islanders go on that run 4-1 all of a sudden after the Rangers score early. But then the Rangers come back. So you think about it. There's a purpose to fighting, but the stupid fighting after the whistle, after the game, towards the end of the game, that's what the NHL wants to get rid of, the stage fighting. But if, in the course of a game, it's going to happen. I mean, it's still part of hockey, but it's down. It's down, but it's the evolution of the game.
Who's the kid? Maybe you said the name and it's escaping me. The kid the Rangers just brought up.
Matt Rempe. Yeah, Matt Rempe. Yeah. He's actually a cool dude. So it's a funny story. I'm sitting at the press conference on the State of the Stadium Series in the media room prior to the game, and the discussion's going around about, is he going to take a rookie lap? Because technically he already had one at Madison Square Garden, but he didn't play. Right. So he gets a second rookie lap outside, which was kind of cool. And by the way, guys, if you didn't get to MetLife or you didn't watch the games, you missed a hell of a weekend in New Jersey because those games were amazing. The sight lines, everything. The NHL did a really, really good job at the Stadium Series. I hope they come back to New Jersey again and do it.
It was certainly fun to see. I love the outdoor series. People talk about extending it and doing more of it.
No.
Still a good thing if you have more of it, right? So. Let's go back to the comments we're coming up here. So Alec had wanted to know what your take was of the Bruins. Obviously, they've slowed a little bit. They started off the season kind of like they did last regular season, but they've kind of hit a little bit of a lull here as we hit midseason. Will that benefit them maybe in the playoffs without the pressure on them, or what's your take?
So here's my take on the Bruins. I think they're overachieving a little bit this season. I think Boston, look, they need help down the middle. They're working on a center. They were in on Sean Monahan. They were in on Elias Lindholm, but they don't want to pay the price that they paid last year, right? They brought in all these guys, the Garnet Hathaways, the Tyler Bertuzzis. They added on defense, but they gave up so many assets to only lose in the first round. And I think Don Sweeney, their general manager, is a little bit hesitant right now to add to their team. They don't want to give up the assets. Look, they have some nice players. Jesper Boquist has stepped up. Morgan Geekie is an underrated signing for Boston. The reason the Bruins are in the position that they're in is because of their goaltending. Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman. And I think Ullmark's going to be moved in the summer because Swayman needs a new contract. And with the cap going up, maybe they're able to keep both guys. But I think they're going to try to move Ullmark in the summer to get a center. I just don't think with a week, 7 days left, those deals are out there for Boston. Maybe they make a little bit of a move, to add center depth. Maybe they try to get Adam Henrique that we talked about earlier. But I just don't know what they can do because I think they're really, really hesitant about what happened last year.
Good point. I was trying to had something else here. We had some comments about the outdoor hockey. People love it. Chris has got wherever they're capped, there's a floor. These types of players are cheaper. So it's debatable changes to the game that we have more enforcers than before.
Well, the term enforcer is really, those guys aren't really around anymore. There's only a handful of those guys. Yeah. Like Ryan Reeves is kind of the last of those guys, Matthew Olivier in Columbus. But, the days of the real enforcer are gone. Like those guys are gone.
The Broad Street bullies we're never going to see again, right?
Right. Like guys now on the fourth line, fourth line, they can fight, but they can score too. That's why Vegas was so good at what they did. Boston for years with those fourth line guys. Like, look, and you stay with the Bruins for a minute. Their defense has been good. Look, the guys that they are playing with, the Marchands, the Pasternaks, I didn't have Boston out of playoffs this year as a lot of people did. But I didn't expect them to be in first place either, right? I had them the year before. I was like, oh, they're going to be a wild card team. That's where I had them this year. And to me, they're overachieving, but I did have them in the playoffs because of, Tampa had the injuries. Their defense isn't as well. Toronto, the book is still out on them, but Florida is where they are. So, I think Boston may stay pat. If they do anything, it may be a minor move to add depth that doesn't cost them a lot.
They're still tied for the most points in the league, right? Yeah, with Florida. So it's not like they've fallen apart. How about the Canadian teams I started to talk about before you came on too? Edmonton, did they peak too soon? They've come back to earth quite a bit here since that. What that winning streak get to? I think it was still going when I went away.
16 games. So 16 games right before the All-Star break. The All-Star break came at the worst time for them, right? Because they were hot and the All-Star break killed their momentum. But they're starting to play a little bit better now. There's you come out of the All-Star break, you're not really sure what you have. McDavid gets his first goal in 10 games, but he had like 21 assists in 9 games. So, but I think the Oilers are finding their stride under new head coach Chris Knobloch. And that team better defensively, better goaltending. They were a team that was looking for goaltending. I think that's settled now. They may try to add a defenseman, maybe some depth up the middle, but I think this team is set. I know they're linked to Jake Kelse, but again, you look at Pittsburgh, and to me, I don't know if he moves. I just don't know. A lot of people say they could do it, but who you replacing him with? Because you got to get something back in that package. And to me, I think Jake Ketse, if he does move, is a player that could move in the summer, or as we've seen with Pittsburgh and the history of Kyle Dubas when he's in Toronto, well, nothing's official until it's official. Tristan Jarry was at the window, was out of Pittsburgh, was out of town. He was not coming back and signs a 5-year extension. What I do believe, and what I've talked to some people is Getsel may sign short term, like Austin Matthews did his time in Toronto. So Jake's going to be 30. Maybe you sign him at the 4 or 5-year deal that keeps the Penguins in that window with everybody else, and then you see what happens after. But again, there's consequences for not doing the rebuild sooner. You're seeing it in Chicago. You're going to see it in Tampa. Like, even with the cap going up, you got to take a step back. Detroit, all those years they stayed in the playoff picture. Now everything's finally coming together for them.
Did I hear, and I don't know if I heard this right, Winnipeg's have a really good year, obviously.
Yeah.
Was there talk about Winnipeg moving?
No.
Look, I must have misheard that.
Look, there's always, the Mark Chipman has come out and said that he wished ticket sales were better.
Yeah.
He wished that he had more season ticket people. Like when the Jets came back, they had all these season tickets throughout. They need more corporate sponsors. They need more corporate people to fill up to help because they have the smallest building in the arena. Gary Bettman, Bill Daly were up there. They said, no, we're not moving the Jets. They're having a good season. But again, it's the economies everywhere, right? Like, you think about it. It's expensive to take a family to a hockey game.
any professional
any sports game. So, and it's hard to pay for 42 regular season games a year. 41 regular season games a year, excuse me. And my dad did it for years in New Jersey, and there's games like random Tuesday night against a bad team. That ticket's not going to sell, and you eat it. So I mean, the Jets are too good not to stay. If they do leave again, that's going to be such a blow to Winnipeg because they love their Jets there, but I don't see it happening. The thing for me is Winnipeg's got to turn some things around on the ice. They're kind of in that February slide that they had last year again, but they're still a really good team. I think, the addition of Sean Monahan has been really good for them. That was an early trade around the All-Star break. That's paid off dividends for them. I think he's exactly what that team needed, and maybe you added some more depth somewhere, but I like what Winnipeg brings to the table.
So do we have a chance to see a Canadian champion for the first time in, I don't know, what is it, 35 years, 30-something years?
30 years since, because Bettman took over. Bettman's been the commissioner for 30. Yeah, the quote-unquote Bettman curse. Though you really can't say it because there's been Canadian teams in the final that they just come up short. But, Vancouver's a team that has a chance. Winnipeg is a team that has a chance. Edmonton has a chance. I mean, Toronto always has a chance, but
there was a comment
I'll believe it when I see it. Look, the Maple Leafs just made a trade last night. They reacquire Ilya Labushkin from Anaheim. He was a guy, if you had listened on the Let's Talk Sports page, I was on Puckett and on the boys on Monday and Thursday, always talking with them. I had mentioned Labushkin and Toronto as a possibility because the Maple Leafs didn't want to give up their first-round pick for a rental in Chris Tanev. If they were going to move it, it was going to be a guy with term.
I think it was Anthony earlier brought up the Boston equated them with the Cowboys in football, but Toronto's closer to a comparison to the Cowboys than.
Well, I would always. What was it when the Cowboys went out again in the divisional round? I said they're the Toronto Maple Leafs of the NFL.
There you go. Good call. So Chris is up in Canada, by the way, one of our newer fans, and Chris has been very active, and he's talking about I can't talk today, man. Tortorella, thank you. Changes coaching style. Has he really changed his coaching style to adapt to new generation? Is a guy like him capable of changing his coaching style that much?
All right, so I'm going to say this, and I've talked with a lot of guys in Philly. John Tortorella it's not that he doesn't like young players. He wants them to work hard. Yeah. And if you work hard, you get rewarded. Now, that being said, I have seen Tortorella change his style. They still play the same way. But if you don't work hard, you're going to sit. If you don't work hard, you're not going to play. But Owen Tippett's playing really well. Morgan Frost is playing really well. Konechny. You got the Nick, they have pieces now that are available in Sean Walker, Nick Seeler. I do believe Seeler's going to re-sign an extension, but again, I don't think it's going to be more than 2-3 years. Not sure about Walker. But again, what does Danny Briere and Keith Jones really want to do? Do they want to stick with the plan, or are they going to be like, well, we're in the playoff race. Should we just keep everybody and decide in the offseason and have our own rentals, which is something they could do? Or do you sign both guys to 2-3 year deals? Again, I think you try to stick with the plan, get some assets. But the problem is Philly never made that step back that everybody thought they would, and they're still in third in the Metro. If a lot of it was going to determine, the standings were going to determine what they did. If they were in like a wild card position, I think they'd be selling off a lot more assets than they would. Yeah. But now you might be like, okay, we're going to keep guys, it's like, you saw what I want to bring up the comparison. I said this at the time, and I brought this comparison into a couple other places. You look at what the Angels did this year, right? They had Shohei Ohtani, right? They used him as a quote-unquote own rental. They probably should have moved him at the MLB trade deadline because after that, he got shut down and the team went to crap. even though they were on this winning streak. And then all of a sudden they went on this losing streak, and they got no value for him. I don't see that happening with the Flyers, but the Flyers are going to have to make decisions after the season if they want to move those guys, because you cannot let players walk to free agency without getting something in return. You're seeing that in Calgary. You're seeing it because Craig Conroy, when he came in as general manager, he said, I'm making it my mission to trade and get value and assets for pending unrestricted free agents. They didn't want to have another Johnny Gaudreau situation, so he's moved out Elias Lindholm. He's moved out Nikita Zadorov. He's moved out Chris Tanev. Let's see if they move out Hannafin. Again, Jacob Markstrom is a player that could move, maybe move, not move. Who knows? But again, they don't have to move Markstrom because he's got a couple years left on his deal. So I think everything is focused on Hannafin. There's a deal on the table. He doesn't want to sign it. He wants to sign it. He doesn't want to sign it. I think they're going to trade him, but that deal's going to be bigger. And I don't think it's going to come together as easily as we think it's going to come together.
As far as Tortorella goes, if he's really changed, we'll see if his shelf life has changed, because I always equate him like Mike Keenan. They would come in, do great things, and wear out their welcome pretty quickly. Or like Billy Martin in baseball, same kind of thing. Turn teams around, but they wear out their welcome because of their style. And we'll see if he's changed. Maybe it might be how long he lasts in Philadelphia. It might show whether he's that much or not.
Right, exactly.
What's Alec got here? Also, I think we're back to probably Winnipeg. Also, TV killed some ticket sales. If you have a choice to go or watch online, what are you going to do on a wet, cold Tuesday night?
Here's the problem. Like the NHL, unlike the rest of the major professional sports, is a gate-driven league, right? The NFL is
right. Yeah.
The NFL isn't a gate-driven league. The NBA isn't a gate-driven league. Major League Baseball, to an extent, but is not. But those three sports are not professional sports. Are not heavily relying on tickets as the NHL is, because the NHL out of the four major sports has the worst TV deal.
Mm-hmm. Well, at least they're not paying. They're not paying themselves anymore.
Right, exactly. The NFL has the best TV deal. College football probably has the second best TV deal.
Oh, yes.
And they'll probably get a better TV deal coming up.
Number one.
Yeah, right. So, and the NBA has a great TV deal. So, but the issue is again, it's the price of the ticket, the food. Do you really want to go? Stuff like that. So, but Winnipeg is doing fine. Cool. I want to bring it back to my comment earlier when I was, before I came on live with you here. I mentioned the New York Rangers, first team to 40 wins. They're playing really well this year. I love what Peter Laviolette's brought to this team. They have balanced scoring. Pat Verbeek was in MSG on Wednesday night. There was talk going around that the Rangers were trying to get Adam Henrique and Frank Vetrano that night. There was a defenseman, Matt Robinson, involved, but they did and a pick, and they weren't sure what the other roster player was. It probably was Capo Caco because he was on the first line that night, and there's no coincidence to that. When guys now look, Caco played really well, and he earned the right to go to that first line because of what he did on the third line. But you don't break up the chemistry there. Again, the Rangers need center help. The Rangers need a scoring winger. They've been linked to all those guys. Vladimir Tarasenko is another name they've been linked to. We'll see if they can bring him back. He didn't want to leave New York. Does Carolina jump in on him? And then I mentioned the Islanders, right? Lou Lamoriello is on the hot seat, and everybody knows it. If this team doesn't make the playoffs, it's going to be a problem. It may end this year, or it may end next year. But one way or another, there will be a changing of general managers in Long Island. Patrick Waugh is doing his best he can. The Islanders had a nice little sweep of the road trip. They're kind of staying afloat. They're there. They're not there. They want to add scoring. We know they've needed scoring since the beginning of the season when I was on here. We've talked about this forever. It's like the Devils goaltending. We know they need it. Can you get it is the real question.
3 through 7 is pretty jammed up in that metropolitan.
I mean, you got Rangers, Carolina up there, and then, like I said, if New Jersey could ever get the goaltending situation, If you get a number one goalie in there, that team has a chance to go on a run, and they could have probably passed the Flyers.
Is it going to
happen? That's the debate. Because there's Marc-Andre Fleury's off the board. He's staying in Minnesota. Nashville's on a 7-game heater. Saros is playing and doing what UC Saros does this time of year. So Nashville's right in there. You know, Calgary, do they want to send the message that they're still in it? They're not in it. You know, you're selling off your UFAs, but you don't want to send the message to the locker room that we've really given up on the season and given up on the playoffs, and Markstrom's been their MVP. But again, with Saros, with Markstrom, those teams really don't have to move those guys because they have term left on their deal. Now you go to Columbus. Can you move Elvis Merzlikins? What about John Gibson in Anaheim? Not sure that's going to happen right now either because the price is high. I think if they do it, it's going to be in the summer because, again, it's a complicated deal. They were right there with Calgary, but the price to retain money on Calgary's end, what was the cost? What draft picks were you giving up to get that goaltender? Because the deal was right there to be made. And then maybe they circle back, and they have circled back on that. But not sure Calgary wants to do it. And now your other options is guys like Jake Allen, Capo Kakinen, Mackenzie Blackwood, you know, Kevin Lincoln, guys like that. Are those really upgrades of what you have now? I would say no. And so it's going to wait till the summer.
Well, it's going to be an interesting 22-game sprint here for some.
Right, exactly. Yeah, a lot of these teams. I mean, and here's another thing when you look at the trade deadline, right? You say to yourself, man, we usually know who the buyers and sellers are this time of year. With everything so jammed up, it's, you know, teams may not move the assets. Maybe it's a quiet trade deadline. You don't know.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. What else should we know about anything in the NHL? Anything else in sports? You and I haven't chatted in a little while. Anything you want to?
All right. So I got a couple things. I got a couple things here for you. All right. One, college basketball March Madness does not need to be expanded. Okay. We got 68 teams. That's too many as it is. And if you don't make the tournament in a Division I program, you should be fired as a head coach. Sorry. I don't want to call for people's jobs. It's the wrong thing to do, but you have ample opportunity to make the tournament. And if you don't, that's on you. Shame on you for not doing it. And upsets in college basketball are not what they used to be. We don't need court storming anymore. These regular season games don't matter anymore. They really don't. Only the certain...
at home. Wake Forest favored at home against Duke and they're storming the court. I mean, come on.
Right. Come on. Like, this isn't Wake Forest of years ago and Duke of years ago. Right. When Mike Krzyzewski was coaching, this isn't 2000s Duke and Wake Forest stinks. Like, no. Right. College football, right? All right. So we haven't even got to 12 teams that we're talking about expanding to 14, 16 teams. Like, we're just going to make it an invitational, to use the word. Like, so we're going to put 11 automatic teams in because the SEC and Big Ten want, and all these Power 5 schools want more teams in. No. The ACC, the SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the non-Power 5 champ get automatic bids. Everybody else should be based on a ranking system.
Agreed. If they're going to expand, to me, and again, I'll get sued from Basement Bob, but if you're going to expand and more automatic bids to conference champions and give them a chance like the NCAA basketball tournament does.
Right.
That would be okay with.
Look, I think you go to 14 because right now 12, and I can see the argument because right now at 12, your conference title game really doesn't matter because if both teams are in the conference championship game, you know both teams are going, most likely. Anyway, if you go to 14, maybe there's a chance that team that loses doesn't get in. But I don't want to have 11 automatic bids.
No, that's crazy. That's crazy.
That's an invitational. That's not a playoff. But I go back to it when I talked with, great great amateur football coach in the state of New Jersey. I did an interview with him. I'm going to post it up on Full Press Coverage. We talked about this years ago. He said once the college football playoff comes into effect, it's going to ruin the sport.
The sport is amateurism has been an illusion for a while, and now it's totally disappeared. And welcome Ralph Williams from RW Media, who I talked about at the top of the show. Always happy to have Ralph in. NCAA is out of control, and it's about to be dead, by the way, because it has no teeth. The courts have, again.
Look, we know where it's heading. You and I have spoken about.
It's just a feeder system for the NFL. That's all we have.
You and I, how many times have I come on your Wednesday show or the Sunday show? We both said Big Ten and SEC is going to be two power conferences. They're going to have their own structure. It's going to be divisions. That's what it's going to be. Yep.
NCAA will not have any say over it. That'll be that. And
right, exactly.
You're going to see it even in this 12-team playoff. You got how many automatic bids? We have 5, right?
Six automatics.
Even with the Pac-12 gone, we still have 6 this first year.
So who am I missing?
Because
it might be 5. No, 5. Yeah, 5.
Yeah, they went to 5 because of the Pac-12 situation. So you got 7 teams, 7 at-large teams. Yeah. Let's just say Notre Dame's one of them, and the rest are probably going to come from the Big Ten and the SEC anyway.
Right, unless the Big 12 has 2 good schools.
Unless the Big 12 might sneak another one in, yes, but. Again, you go to 14, all you do is add 2 more Big Ten and SECs.
Look, to me, no one has to like the 12-team playoffs can work if you have a season like you just had, right? Where you had 8 teams that could legit win a national title.
Yep.
But if you don't have that, then 13 and 14 should not be complaining about that they didn't make the 12-team playoff.
Nobody should be complaining at that point.
Nobody should be complaining because you're in a 12-team playoff. I'm interested to see how it looks. I can't wait to see these home games on campus. It'll be fun to see.
The interesting part is Notre Dame going to get pushed to a conference? Have to, because they have no automatic path to a playoff.
No, they don't.
Right now.
No, I don't think. I personally, look, I think they'll end up in a conference, whether it's the Big Ten or ACC. Now, you and I both have said this too. The COVID year, the ACC should have put their foot down for the football side and said, you're locked in for 3 years.
Exactly.
You're locked because they play an ACC schedule anyway.
Yeah. They missed their chance right there. The ACC should have just kept their foot on their throat and said, yeah, we'll let you play, but you're playing here for good now.
Or you're playing here for 5 to 10 years and we'll renegotiate in 5 to 10 years.
Now they picked up even another ACC game with Stanford going to the ACC, so they've got another ACC game.
That's what I'm saying. So all their other schools are like, that was the time to do it, was to put the foot down and commit them to play the ACC.
Amazing.
Because guess what? And the more I think about it as we talk on air, if Notre Dame's in the ACC, maybe Florida State gets in the 4-team playoff if they're undefeated. Because if you play Notre Dame and you beat them and you're undefeated,
that's a great point.
You know, I'm just saying.
It's a great point. I still think it's a travesty. All these months later, and
well, look, to me, this is what I would have done. But they would have not done it. But I think you could have done it. You know what I would have done this year? I would have said, okay, fine. You want to put Alabama in? That's great. All well and good. How about 1 game? Winner goes to the 4th spot or 3rd spot, wherever you want to put them. Alabama, Florida State, played on the field. Winner gets in.
Good point. Jim, thanks for coming in.
Because Texas was always getting in, right? Texas was going to get in. Right,
always. Well, we're out of time. Jim, thanks for coming in. Stick around for 1 second. I want to talk to you once we go off the air real quick.
Perfect.
But I thank you for coming in and filling in at the last minute. And I hope you guys enjoyed Jim Beringer, as I always do, not just a hockey aficionado, but sports in general. You can catch him at fullpresshockey.com and Let's Talk Sports. And we'll see you guys next Friday with Are You Serious? Maybe the Mad New Yorker will make an appearance. We'll see. And we'll talk to you guys later. Have a great weekend. See you later on the MLB update.